Good afternoon. It is Saturday, May 27th, 2023. We've almost made it 5 months in this series. Still having a lot of fun, still remembering a lot of events that happened, and finding a lot of cards of people that I'd forgot that I had had. So we're going to start with a few events here. And again, this is pretty much the next 3 or 4 days is going to be Indy 500 / Coca-Cola 600 heavy, because this is the time of year those races happen. So 1972 on this date, Mark Donohue wins his first and only Indy 500. Of course, I look at Mark as being one of the best racers of all time. I think other drivers that rank with him would be somebody like a Mario Andretti, Juan Manuel Fangio, maybe, you throw in Foyt, Stewart, a couple others to that level, Senna. It's a very, very, very tight group of the people that were this versatile. Excuse me. On this date in 1979, Rick Mears wins his first of 4 Indianapolis 500 races. 1984 on this date, Bobby Allison wins the Coca-Cola 600, and what would be the last win for Dygaard as an owner. And yes, I know that they won a race with Saxon 85 at Daytona, and that was their R&D car, so we do still count that one. But this is the last win for the flagship Dygaard team that was once such a powerful operation in the late 70s and early 80s. Dygaard would float around for a few more years before just quietly shutting their doors and, going out of business. 1990 and 1997 on this date, Arie Luyendyk wins his only 2 Indy 500s. Nothing really significant in 1997 happened, other than it took like 3 or 4 days to run a race. I think it got rained out on Sunday, and then they tried to start it on Monday, and I want to say they got a little bit of it in, then they had to throw the red flag. I believe they actually finished it on a Tuesday, because I know my mom had told me she had went down there because she wanted to go to it, and she was off that day, and they weren't even checking tickets at this point. They were just letting people in because so many people had to go back to work since the holiday weekend was over. But 1990 was important because at the time it was the fastest 500 ever ran, but that record has since been broken by 2013, 2014, and 2021. In 2007, Casey Mears wins his first Cup Series race in the Coke 600. Couple drivers, Casey, first win. J.J. Yaley finished second, his first ever top 5 finish in the Cup Series. And Kyle Petty got his final career top 5 finish in the Cup Series in that race as well. So really interesting, you look back, and it was a fuel mileage race. And for Mears to win on Indy 500 day, but not in the 500, it was super special. Plus, he had a really cool National Guard paint job that day as well for Memorial Day weekend. Only have 3 birthdays today, and you'll know by the title who they are, and I'll just say this. One of them is a very, very well-respected member of the racing community. The other one, still pretty popular, but not for the right reasons, but we're not, there's podcasts you can listen to. But I really like his story. I really like, his racing story. I can't speak for the other stuff because he's got his story and NASCAR has theirs. But a birthday I don't have a year for, pretty important person in motorsports, Mr. John Bickford. And if you know who John Bickford is, you might have heard of his stepson, Jeff Gordon. So John Bickford helped Jeff get into the midgets and the quarter midgets and all the stuff out in California to get him started. Of course, when he was 13, he moved to Indiana so he could drive the sprint cars. And as they say, the rest is history. So I spoke of our 2 birthday boys for today. Born on this date in 1942, former editor of Stock Car Racing magazine and longtime pit reporter for ESPN and TNN, Dr. Dick Berggren. So always liked his commentary during the race. He's one of these ones that was, he's always straight up. He was very, very serious, and I believe he still runs the New England Motorsports Hall of Fame, which is either on the grounds or near the grounds of the New Hampshire International Raceway, or New Hampshire Motor Speedway, or whatever they're calling it now. But I always thought he was really, really, the way that he did his commentary, very different, but really enjoyed it. And of course, the other person that I was talking about, loaded with controversy near the end of his racing career, born on this date in 1969, Mr. Jeremy Mayfield. So we're going to talk about his racing career here. Like I said, the other stuff that's debated, you can go listen to podcasts. I don't have a dog in the fight. So, but Mayfield came to Cup in 1993, driving first for Sadler Brothers, then later for T.W. Taylor. Actually, I'm sorry, 93 he came in very late driving for Sadlers. He started 94 with the Sadlers, then went to T.W. Taylor's 0-2 car for a few races. Then Cale dropped Derek Cope and picked up Jeremy mid-season to finish out the Fingerhut run. If you've never heard of Fingerhut, it's a mail order catalog. They do have a couple good buys in there, but most of their stuff is they got RCA sponsorship in 1995. And then he kept that on the car till 1996 when they cleaned up the paint job. I mean, I think this uniform looks much better than this one, and you'll say the same thing about the car. Midway through 96, Cale and Jeremy and those folks weren't having fun. Same over at the 37 bunch with John Andretti, so they switched rides. They just literally showed up for Richmond, and they switched rides for the rest of 96. 97, they had R.C. Cola come on board as one of their primary associates. I got a sneeze. Sorry about that jump cut. Did not want a sneeze in the video. 1998, they switched numbers and sponsors. So they switched from number 37 to number 12 to be more in line with the Penske buyout that they had. Because the team went from Cranefus Haas to Cranefus Penske to Penske Racing. So they switched from 37 to 12 to be, instead of being cars 2 and 37, being 2 and 12. That Penske uniformity, of course. But Mobil 1 came on, as you see, they had a couple of different uniforms there for not sure what reason, but in 2000, late 2001, Mayfield was dropped in favor of Mike Wallace to finish the year, and then, of course, Ryan Newman took over in 2002. Mayfield went over to the 19 team to become driver replacing Casey Atwood in the 19 car. And this is something I've always thought was interesting. Ray Evernham had a business strategy similar to Rick Hendrick if you really, really look at things. Look at this patch right here on Mayfield, Mountain Dew. Mayfield's teammate was Bill Elliott, who was a Coca-Cola driver. Mountain Dew, obviously a Pepsi product. Rick Hendrick had 2 cars running on the track at the same time. One was sponsored by Nationwide Insurance. One was sponsored by Farmers Insurance. It's like he's taken money from the 2 different companies to put into the same company, and I find that hysterical. So it's kind of a thing that Ray Evernham did, and he kind of did it a little bit later on when the Evernham bought out, or when the Richard Petty Motorsports, Evernham, and all these other groups kind of combined, and they had a lot of rotating sponsors. So I want to say Stanley Tools, who was on the 19 car for a while. I think there was another tool brand that was on one of their other cars, but I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But there's another look at a different Dodge dealer's uniform. After he was released in 2006, he went to drive for Haas for a year. Yeah, this is in 2008. He did have a brief spell there, the 70 car, but that didn't last long. He also ran his full season with Bill Davis in the 36 OTC car, or OTC 360 or whatever it was called, and then had a partial season in his own car, number 41, before the whole NASCAR thing came tumbling down. Like I said, there's a lot of podcasts. Go out there and listen to his story and draw your own conclusions. Like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. He's either innocent or guilty. There's no gray area. And because both sides of the story don't line up, you just have to take what you can get. But anyway, some nice pictures of different cars that he ran here. You see the Fingerhut car. There's a better view of it. I always thought this was a nice looking car. That black and that light purple, whatever you want to call it. Here's the RCA car. As you can see, the DSS on the hood is black there, and here it's white. DSS Digital Satellite System. We had an RCA dish. If you had heavy cloud cover, you weren't getting reception, but it was still pretty cool option to cable when you couldn't get cable in your area. 97, they switched this to this paint job. Again, I thought this was a much cleaner paint job. I'm sorry, 96. They switched to this paint job. Much cleaner, and it kind of went away from the DSS and focused just on RCA as a company, which, of course, was owned by Thompson Consumer Electronics, but I think the whole business went under here a number of years ago. Jeremy Mayfield in the 37 when they did the switch. And this was, of course, the car that Johnny Andretti was driving. Again, I like this paint job. Think it's very, very nicely done. Then they went to this abomination. I'm not sure if maybe there was some higher up in, the Cranifus Haas deal that was like, all right, kids, for our Sunday school project, draw up a paint job. I just don't think that they could have done this so much better. But this was just like a patchwork puzzle. It's just not looking well. Then they had one of the special sponsors. Kmart always had their Race Against Drugs campaign. Again, kind of an oddball looking car, kind of plain in the front, a little bit of yellow here and there. Could have been different. Then the 12 Penske cars, of course, very, very similarly painted to Rusty's. Good, or not, I said Goodwrench because there's Dale in the back. No, that's not Dale. I've seen the black nose, but that's actually probably Skinner. Lowe's Home Improvement car. I just seen this because my finger was covering up, and I thought that was Earnhardt, but it's not Earnhardt behind him. But Rusty's teammate, the Miller car, if you took all the labels off, you couldn't tell the cars apart. But look how pitted the front end is, all the dirt and debris and stuff. There's another view, obviously going for the Winston Million in this race with the orange valance, orange number, and orange spoiler, racing Sterling Marlin. And the only couple views that I had of a 19 car are these two. Of course, they're very similar to Bill Elliott's. Just add a 1 and some green trim, and there you go. So, only a couple birthday boys, but a lot of cards for one. A little bit of history there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the Saturday, and we will be back tomorrow, like I said, with our flea market find-esque video of our trip to the Indy Memorabilia Show, Racing Memorabilia Show. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we will see you tomorrow.